It's another time on Public Square, coming from Adaba 80.9 FM, and we welcome you on yet another interesting edition of the program. All right, today we will be looking at another national issue, and especially as the 2023 presidential election draws near by the day. All right, shortly after the People's Democratic Party's primary election that held in Abuja, there was some sort of perceived fury from some members of the party owing to the alleged reported refusal of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar to pick Governor Wike of Rivers State, and this has caused a lot of reactions after that period, with a lot of outbursts actually from the governor of Rivers State, Wike. Sometimes he calls himself the Emperor of Rivers. At other times he says PDP cannot get votes from the state except the state is accorded the deserving respect. Well, what that means we'll find out in the course of the program today. And just about 2 days ago, there have been reports that there could be some sort of political hobnobbing and permutation ongoing right now, especially between rival parties. That is, some supporters of Wike and that of APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu. What does this portend for PDP? What is the state of PDP's health ahead of 2023? And of course, we have reports as well that in Rivers State today, perceived supporters of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who happens to be the presidential candidate of the PDP, are being witch hunted, if you want to call it that, or better still, there's been some sort of political onslaught against people who have been perceived to be supporters of Atiku Abubakar in Rivers State. Okay, in the middle of all of this, the governor came out to say that Rivers State cannot be downplayed electorally. Permit me to use that word. Electorally, there is some sort of value attached to Rivers State. Remember, in 2019, Rivers State garnered a total vote of 473,971 of 666,585 for Atiku in that state. And remember, we have some big wigs of the APC also, like former Minister Rotimi Amechi and the likes. But today we have a lot to talk about. But first of all, let's start from some of the most basic parts of this discussion. In the studios with me this morning, I have three gentlemen who would be dissecting this and some other issues that we would speak to in the course of the program. Barrister Femi Omoshua is a regular on the show. He's a member of the APC. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
I also have Mr. Alan Showore, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Nigerians.
And Mr. Gbenga Akinmoyo, the CEO, Lead I Follow. Lead I Follow is an online leadership ranking and engagement platform. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and very good morning to all our listeners.
All right, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about this morning. But first off, we have the background story that has, caused a lot of drama within the PDP, especially between Wike and Atiku. There's definitely going to be some sort of sentiments involved in all of this, but let's be objective this morning in our submission. First off, this perceived feud, we don't even know if there's a feud anyway, the perceived feud between Wike and Atiku within the People's Democratic Party, is it needed? Is it necessary? Is it even called for? I'm starting with Mr. Ashore.
Thank you very much. I want to start by saying the fact that I was present at the National Convention of the People's Democratic Party, which produced Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And as we all know, It's one of the best organized arrangements in terms of party primary and internal democracy. And interestingly, Governor of Rivers State, Wike, is not complaining about the arrangement or alleging any infraction or malpractices. Well, as a matter of fact, the fact that he did not emerge, he feels so pained, and it's natural, it's human. So for me, he has worked for the party, he has built the party, and the relationship between him and the party is symbiotic. In same way, in same quantity, he has benefited from the party. So the question as to, is this necessary at this stage for somebody who has become a statesman, a national figure? He came second, tried his best. As a matter of fact, he probably will have won that election, even because of the fact that there was some kind of merger at the dying minute. So he's a respected member of the PDP who should display some kind of spirit of sportsmanship.
Okay, the question is, I'm not a member of the People's Democratic Party, so we do not understand typically what is going on within your party. The question is there a feud to start with? This is all, whatever we say here, or whatever media reports that we have are perceived.
That's exactly what the background I'm trying to lay. Is what exactly is happening in PDP is personal. It's a personal, what I would call feeling of lost. Not rejection, lost. He lost the primaries. He feel pain. It happens in other political parties too. A lot of people participated in that. You know, this is the first time in the history of democracy that party have begun to conduct very transparent primary election. So people don't expect that it could happen, that ordinary people, the members of party, will have such power to determine, irrespective of the enormous weight that individual could have, to determine the outcome of presidential election. So it's a personal grief, it's a personal feeling that has been upgraded to a national level, and it's like you rightly asked, it's unnecessary, it's uncalled for.
Okay, quickly let's take ourselves down memory lane. Right after the primary election, remember that it behoves the presidential candidates now to pick a running mate who, could eventually become the vice president of the country. Could, and a lot of consultations were made, reportedly. At the end of these consultations, it was said that a majority of PDP governors wanted Wike to emerge as vice president, and surprisingly, the candidates went for another person in person of the sitting governor of Delta State, Fayokoa.
Yeah,
let's get to Mr. Akimoyo on this. You were a member of the PDP. You are a member of the PDP. If that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe you have to clarify. Are you still a member of the PDP? The last I heard.
Well, I haven't moved to another party.
So you still
otherwise it would have been made public, and I'm sure you'd be one of the first to hear.
Okay, so as a member of the PDP, do you think that was fair on Wike to start with?
That he chose a candidate
Fayokoa over Wike.
You see, we have to have an understanding that we organize and operate a presidential system of government, and there is a flag bearer who carries the flag on behalf of the other members of the party. It's not a parliamentary system where you have a very coherent party whip and structure where the party supremacy is dominant. In a presidential system of government, the president is almost the be-all and end-all. And whilst the party can have a say and influence in the direction that they want their party to go, it's really down to the candidates to make a choice. It's not the first time that a presidential candidate emerges from a properly run convention of every party, and indeed the PDP, and then chooses their own candidate to run on the ticket. A lot of considerations would have been taken on board. A lot of consultation would have taken place. But to think that the view of the candidate himself should be overridden over and above that of the party or party stakeholders, or in fact divisions of the party, would be nonsensical. Because if you're elected, you're going to serve for 4 years as the president, and more importantly, if you're incapacitated and unable to run that office, then you have to consider the interest of the nation. If your vice president is unsuitable, then it's your choice. So there's a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of a presidential candidate to choose an appropriate person to be heir to the throne in the event that he is unavailable. And I think that we have to just give it to the Alhaji, His Excellency Atiku, that he has made a credible choice for Nigerians.
For a man who garnered majority of the votes, save for the last-minute merger, just like Ms. Shawara said. Well, Atiku was eventually announced the winner in that election, but the fact remains that Wike pulled up a very good fight and came second at the convention. He's been funding the PDP according to reports for the longest time now, especially in Rivers State, where the party structure seems to be solely dependent on him as governor of the state. And apart from that, Governor Wike, the state where he comes from, has one of the highest electoral value in South and Southeast combined. For instance, at the last count, the INEC said the Rivers State had the highest number of registered voters, ahead of Imo and even Delta, where the vice presidential candidate comes from. Don't you think it's even more reasonable for Atiku to have chosen to take Wike in the first place?
Political parties are not organized on the basis of he who pays the piper dictates the tune. Political parties are an assemblage of individuals who have a common interest. Their primary focus is to gain political power, which they will now translate into effective good governance. And in reaching that destination, you have to consider everybody that makes up the political framework, and you have to consider the future and the people whom you want to serve. So for us to simply say reward the areas where we'll have the highest number of votes, or the person who has the deepest pockets, is thinking subjectively rather than objectively. And I'm proud to say that for the number of years that the PDP has been running, it's a party that you can't say is owned by an individual, even though the narrative seems to be suggesting that because one person has been funding, he owns the PDP. PDP from 1999 has not been in any individual's pockets. It's a democratic party that runs across the board and assimilates and accommodates views of everybody.
Okay, now for the sake of political correctness, he spoke based on he didn't speak as a typical politician, if you ask me, but for the sake of political correctness, and you know that for every politician who is aspiring for elective position, the major objective is to win, is victory. Now, do you think that Wike was better qualified at the time Atiku was choosing his vice presidential candidate, was better qualified than Delta's Ifeanyi Okowa?
Is that to me again?
Barrister Omashiwa, this is to you.
Thank you very much. Let me talk as a politician, and don't let me talk as a member of the ruling party. Yorubas will say, yes, I want to believe some of our pitfalls are being studied by PDP, and why we study same as well. But as politicians, we need to speak holistically. I want to believe two things are involved in this rift. Number one, Wike is conscientiously haunted by the consensus addendum the southern governors had, that power should come to the south. And firstly, he will consider that this thing is not coming to the south, And what is the essence of planning it or assembly together to decide that something that power should come to the South in the first place? Secondly, the choice of Okowa, after having lost out, yes, normally in politics, when you do your primaries, no matter how you look at it, somebody will emerge. Yes, everybody will want to, do some intrigues and use some tricks to win. But as soon as the person is declared, the person becomes the candidate of the party. But the next thing is, what do I stand to gain? Even if I say I want power to come to the South and it wouldn't come, because politics is not about just being static. If you are static, you are not a politician. You should be able to know how to move, how to adjust, how to say no and how to say yes, so that you people will meet at a common ground. But having lost the primary, he was thinking that, okay, the next thing should be, okay, it could be pacified with this position of number 2. But just like what my colleague has said, that in deciding who deputize for you, there are about 2 or 3 presumptions. Number 1, presumption of loyalty, and loyalty is never 99.9%. 2, presumption of capability, and I think the third one will be how competent is the person. And by the time you look at loyalty is not just about, oh, I am totally loyal, or I am sleeping, somebody is smashing me. There are times the weight of the person that is deputizing for you, if it's stronger than you, somebody might be saying, oh, this person might edge you out. Just like what some people in some quarters are saying about Shetima, Tinubu, and what have you today. And I want to believe our 21st century politicking should have moved beyond that will this person outstage me, will this person outsmart me? Because the problem we're having in Nigeria that has not made this country to move forward is that the gap between the president, commander-in-chief of armed forces of Federal Republic of Nigeria, the gap between them is too far, and the vice president, the president is in the north, the vice president is in the south. That is why even if something is about to happen, the vice president is never there to say, "Oga, this thing is wrong." You understand that?
So you're saying the choice of Okowa is justified?
No, I'm talking about how politics is being done here, which ought not to have been.
Because we have a lot of issues to touch on the program this morning.
Yeah.
Let's not waste too much time on that. Now, Mr. Shore,
yes,
it was said that Atiku at some point, I do not have the facts, but it was reported that Atiku at some point downplayed the electoral value of Rivers State, where he allegedly said that Rivers State does not have much to offer. So if Wike wants to do anything, he's free to do so. If this is true, does that sentiment justify Wike's reaction?
That is not absolutely correct, and this erroneous assumption that a person who becomes second in a primary election should automatically be vice presidential candidate of the for the presidential candidate is the same as if you are saying Bola Ahmed Tinubu should have chosen Rotimi Amaechi as his vice presidential candidate. It's not always like that. Before primary election, let me tell you.
It's a bit different in the case.
Let me tell you.
In the case of Atiku and Wike,
I understand.
Majority of the governors wanted Wike.
Let me tell you what played out. Before primary election, there have been a lot of horse trading. A lot of agreement will have be made. Somebody is looking for election during the pre-primary will have negotiated out this vice presidential slot. That's the truth. You want to be presidential candidate of a party as big as PDP, there are possibility. I was there. Okowa was the agent of Alhaji Abubakar during the primary. He was walking up and down. He even said that said Godfather that there was nobody who could take away the vice president. So obviously that will have been negotiated out. So for me, the dice is cast. There's nothing you can do about it. So, and there's a mistake that every or any presidential candidate will not make, to put two masters on the same boat. It won't work. They were structure. You needed to be there. Wike has those structure, everything. It's possible that he would have even appointed his minister. If he had been mad, will he now go and obstruct this thing? Of course, there could be a level of accommodation, but you cannot insist that somebody, a presidential candidate, should appoint or elect somebody or to be. So now you are talking about the majority of the governor. There was recommendation of 3 persons, and among the 3, he picked. It is equivalent to say here that the prerogative to pick who is going to be your vice presidential candidate solely is a decision of the presidential candidate or the governorship candidate. So to take input from the party is equally politically correct, which he has done by setting up a committee. Please go and source for people who are competent, who have the capacity, who have the political wherewithal to garner vote for me.
Okay, now, Mr. Benga Kimoyo, along the line, Atiku Abubakar also tried his best to reconcile the different situations, and then PDP also tried to pacify Wike when a reconciliation committee was put up, and there were some demands along the line. According to reports, Wike demanded that the national chairman of PDP, who is a northerner, should step down for the sake of equality and equity within the party. The party structure, according to him, is not fair to the South. The national chairman of the PDP, Yochayu, is a northerner, regardless of how you want to say it. He is a northerner. The presidential candidate of the PDP is a northerner. The BOT chairman of the party is a northerner. And I think, if you ask me, well, my opinion is nothing consequential here, but do you think Wike has a point when he demanded that Yochayu should step down as chairman for a southerner to take over?
Well, life in itself is not fair. You're rich, I'm poor. I'm beautiful, you're handsome. Life is not fair, but we have to deal with the hands that we are dealt. The fact of the matter is,
in a secular society, in a secular country as Nigeria?
Yes, once a decision has been taken by a political party, it behoves on every loyal, dedicated member to accept that in the first instance. If you protest, you have a right to do that. But there's an extent to which we expect any aggrieved member to carry their quarrel in the interest of the party and in the interest of the nation. As a vehicle, lead I follow, we preach about good leadership and showing good leadership skills. There's a point in time when Nigerians who are going to go to the polls next year will become frustrated with the over-protesting. That you make your point, but indeed come to the table and negotiate. And you see, it's okay to negotiate your position if you want to protect the southern governor's interest, if you want to consolidate the decisions that you would have taken had you had won the elections, and bring them into the framework of that which the presidential candidate now has to consider. It has to be done by persuasion, by negotiations. But you see, we don't know whether our leaders are today in France, in Germany, or London, as is being reported. I think these are things that should be sorted out around the table here in Nigeria, because we're talking about issues that affect this country. So I think that from a leadership perspective and a good governance perspective, well, some of us in the game are taking it a little bit too far. But we have to respect decisions. And I have to say, Nigerians are not very good at that, especially when we lose a contest. It's probably on record since 1999 that there's only one individual that has fairly accepted the results of an election, and he's been heralded around the world for that. even at local council level, before you go into the contest, you've already written your protest that you're going to court to challenge, and that's a wrong way to approach things.
Before we continue to overdrag this issue, let's look at the basic sentiments. Now, as a political party, it behoves the leadership of the party to consider the sentiments of all parties and then find a common ground so that everyone will be happy at the end of the day.
And that is being done. And the BOT has been brought into the picture to say, look, let's resolve what needs to be resolved. A report was supposed to have been submitted and received yesterday. I haven't had the update on that. But PDP has a way of resolving their issues because they are, as I said, a democratically constituted and configured network that resolve issues. You will have issues.
Okay, what does the APC feel about this?
Huh?
What's your take on? You're a member of the APC. What do you feel about the political structure within the PDP?
I am not a member of PDP.
I understand you're not a member, but as a politician, you're a politician and an active member of the political party.
Yeah.
Do you think the convention that has been adopted by the PDP right now is fair?
I want to believe, being an advocate of LD politicking, I want political parties to grow maturedly so that we can begin to think less of even winning elections. How do we even educate the electorates? Because most of the things that we do these days is just a jamboree approach of approach towards election. Today now, you see, thank God that we are discussing in a very civilized way here. If it were to be another program, you see APC train banter at PDP, PDP train banter at APC. But I want to believe more like the normal way of train banters. It should have been, now that we have found ourselves in a quagmire in Nigeria, there has been a lot of expectation from Nigerians. How have we been able to develop our different political parties so that it will make it easy, so that it will not just be that after 4 years all we are struggling about is, how we win election, and by the time we win the election, how do we put in the structure? It shouldn't just be like a soldier man that's going to a war front that is manufacturing.
If you ask me, Nigerian politicians, a lot of them actually speak from both sides of the mouth.
Yeah.
That is to say that there's a lot of hypocrisy in Nigeria's politics.
Yes.
Now, some time back, before any party held its primary elections at all, there was this very popular clamor for power shift to the south for the sake of equality, according to them. And now you're saying that party members should jettison that sentiment and focus on something else. I mean, how do we marry those?
What I was saying is, the way they started, these governors that all of a sudden reneged. The only governor that has not reneged in their resolution is Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. He has always been saying power must come to the south. In fact, it was a normal song in the mouth of many of them when they started. But the only person that has not reneged, that has been singing it up to today, is the governor of Ondo State. And what were they saying? I want to liken the scenario to the scenario of people, hunters who were going to the forest to kill animals.
Before you make that illustration, let me ask you a pointed question. As a member of the APC, if your national chairman happens to be a northerner, and your BOT chairman happens to be a northerner, and then your presidential candidate happens to be a northerner, would you have said the same thing?
No, it's not fair. It's not fair. But I wouldn't want, the PDP, they have their internal ways of fixing issues. What can be taken by PDP might not be taken by APC. But if it were to be in APC, far before now, the chairman of APC will have been changed, because the presidential candidate is from the south, and if the chairman of the party is from the south, I believe it is commonsensical, and it is with the reason of a reasonable man. It would be wise for the chairman to go to the north.
Okay, quickly, we would definitely open the phone lines for you to call in when the time is right. There has been a lot of outbursts from Wike. Sometimes quite entertaining. I find some of this outbursts entertaining because he has a particular hype man who knows how to complement his outbursts, and it gives you some sort of entertainment. Sometime he was on social media in a viral video, where Wike was quoted to have, in fact he said it, I saw one of the videos where he said that PDP people should leave him alone. Nobody should come after him, and in quick succession, some members of the party also alleged that Wike started to seek legal redress regarding the outcome of the primary election, which he was quick to also debunk, that he never did anything of such. Few days after, he was also seen with some members of the APC who were at various times in Rivers State to launch a project or the other. And this also stirred a lot of reactions, especially on social media. Like, what's going on with PDP and Wike? What exactly is going on? Mr. Shore, can you read Wike's mind and what he's up to?
Yeah, thank you. Let me quickly make this remark about your last question. Either it is fear for the chairman of the party, the BOT chair, and the presidential candidate to be from part of the country. If you put that question to me, straight away I would say it is unfair, and the candidate of the party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has said clearly that immediately the president emerged of a northern extraction, that the present chairman has to stand down. But there is somewhere that is not very clear when he says so before the primary. He didn't say either immediately after the primary election or after the general election. So for Wike to make that demand, for me, it is a legitimate demand. But now going to your latest question, is pointing to just one direction, that perhaps Mr. Wike is in bed with the candidate of the APC. But the game is playing out, and for me, I pray for him that he is not going to make this calamitous political decision of his life. It happened to our revered ex-president Goodluck Jonathan, who went and obtained the presidential form in APC. This is a man who probably will have sat down somewhere in PDP and be the national leader of that party. So, well, Nigeria, sometimes, if they will listen, Nigeria politicians, it is better to leave the stage when the ovation is loudest. All this that is happening, for me, it is a storm in a teacup. I should not take it too far. Today is a beautiful bride for all the Nigerian politicians, but the moment he makes that decision, he will realize that there's nobody that's indispensable. Okay,
do you think Wike is taking his agitation too far, Mr. Akimoyo? Well, I have to allude to one of the scenarios where Wike was with the sitting Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. Femi said at that event that Wike should choke, verbatim, should choke the PDP members. And Wike was seen somewhere in the corner of the venue, laughing hilariously and complimenting that perceived joke. But there could be more to that joke, actually. Do you think, or do you see Wike defecting to the APC? Has he taken this agitation too far? Should he stop now? What exactly do you feel about the whole situation?
Well, I alluded certain comments towards that direction, that I think there comes a time when we must stop protesting and look at the national objective. But it's also important for the voters, the electorate, and Nigerians generally to understand that regardless of which party you belong to, we are all stakeholders in the national project. So whether you are a serving governor on the platform of PDP, APC, Labour, or any other party, and at the same time you are a member of the National Assembly, either in the House of Representatives or the Senate, or you're a minister, you're all involved in national unity. You're all involved in national development. We might play for different teams, but the national interest comes first. And there will be times when we will get together in a room, we'll have banter, we'll have jokes. We know deep down inside us that if it's detrimental to Nigeria, then we can't carry that too far. So some of these things, like my brother has said, are storm in a teacup and should just be considered as tongue-in-cheek. But when push comes to shove, the issues that affect Nigeria on the streets today are not whether Wike is decamping or not decamping. And I don't see him decamping, because he has a structure in PDP in River State, which he has to hand over to somebody else, his successor. And I don't think he's going to jettison.
It was first rumored that Wike met with APC presidential candidates in London some time ago. That was debunked because there were no facts to it. There were no evidences attached to the rumor. But this time, Wike was said to have met with Bola Tinubu in France with pictures all over the social media. What does this signal to you, Rasta Washua?
I want to believe, just like what Mr. Ashore said here, I see Wike more as a decoy in APC than even joining APC, or maybe, let me say, an undercover being sent by PDP to APC. Why I say this is simply because all of us know that it is too late. It will be too late for Wike to join APC. Why did I say so? Wike, as he is today, I don't see him being in the same boat with Amechi. It can't work. I know quite sure, and I can take that to the bank for real. And at the same time, Wike is a beautiful bride. It may not be beautiful again after 2023 election, but as it is today, Wike is a beautiful bride that has a lot of suitors. He will want to show his backyard,
and he's choking them apparently.
He has all it takes. He has the front, he has the back, and he's trying to tell them that price me high. If I were PDP, I will price Wike high. Whatever he wants, even if he's not able to get all, but negotiate with him. I don't see, even if Wike will give some attention to APC, I don't see him coming to APC 100%. So, and if anybody is thinking, because I listened to one governor yesterday on Channels television, he said, what is Wike? He said, Wike, if he's not a governor, who knows him? Wike is a governor. In law, we call such person a notorious fact. That Nigeria is a country is a notorious fact. That Governor Wike is a governor is a notorious fact. Nobody can take it away from him. And as it is today, if anybody is saying, if he's not a governor, who will have known him? Is it not rhetorical to say that? So I will have loved the PDP. Wike is still within you. Romance him, massage his ego, get in, give him whatever he needs. And if you wouldn't,
would that not be too indulging? Would that not be too indulging if Wike gets whatever he wants? Regardless,
he said he has paid his dues. He said he has funded PDP for a while. Do you know since when they have been out of power? These 7 years. How have they been winning some other elections? These are people who have been funding candidates. These are people who have been funding the party. So if he's asking for anything, I think it is not too much. And if they think it is too much, they should negotiate with him than for them to be thinking he's on bed with APC. If he has his way to be on bed with APC, we are ready to use our duvet to cover him. And we will take him.
You don't have duvet, you have broom.
While all of these situations are being dealt with within the PDP, Wike pulled another stunt in Rivers State when he either intentionally or otherwise went after perceived supporters of Atiku in Rivers. Some businesses were closed down recently. I'm going to play a soundbite right now that is his justification for the move, but a lot of political analysts, so to speak, think that there is more to it than just what Wike said. We'll listen to this and then I'll be back.
We are proud to say this is only one state today that PDP can be sure of returning the governorship. This is only one state for now.
As we dey fly up, we dey fly down. As we dey fly up, we dey pain them.
One of the reasons why PDP had to choose their governorship candidate is somebody who is aware, who knows what government is doing, because he must be part of the system, to understand the system, to continue from where we are going to stop, and not people who just have that idea, I want to be governor to siphon our money. Thank God we did not give them the ticket. Let me say this clearly. It doesn't matter the party you belong to. I've said we are spending a lot of money to provide security in this state, and therefore it doesn't matter which party you belong to. I made a broadcast last time. This our people believe that that's the way government will do anything. Now let me tell anybody who cares, whether you're in PDP, you're in APC, you're in SDP, you're in Accord, you're whatever party you call it. If I catch you try to plot to bring security in this state, you go in for it. There's no amount of propaganda. If you like, go to social media, they are clapping down on you. It's a business. I will not allow anybody, because we have suffered it severally and we have spent money, can begin to arrange parties in your event center, in your hotels. Pray. I don't have any hint about it. If I do, I will bring down your hotel, I will bring down the event center, and I will arrest those people. I will pursue them.
Okay, that's Governor Wike's justification. If you recall, about 4 or 5 days ago, the Rivers State government sealed 2 hotels and a filling station belonging to some political associates of Atiku Abubakar. And the person who happens to be the landlord of those properties is a former ally of the Rivers State governor, who is no longer in the good books for allegedly hobnobbing with the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar. Now the question is this a palatable situation to start with? And even if there were 2 divides, there were 2 camps in the Rivers State, should the governor go personal with people on political issues? Mr. Benga Kimoyo.
Thank you very much. Well, we've heard what Governor Wike said, but we don't really know what he really meant deep inside him. We can infer that from what he has stated, security is paramount because a lot has been invested and security nationwide is a critical issue. There is something that is called coincidence. That certain establishments were closed temporarily pending investigations of what we do or do not know may have been occurring in the darkness of the night. We should not conclude that it is political bigotry. We have to be careful to give a dog a bad name because he has been protested. I don't think that any reasonable and responsible state governor should take security lightly in his own domain, and he needs to do everything to ensure that people go about their lawful duties. But at the same time, there needs to be political tolerance of your accusers, your allegers, your opponents. And I think that PDP has over the years demonstrated political tolerance. Otherwise, back in 2013, 2014, when
the political party we now today have as APC was being formed, they would have prevented that from happening. So political tolerance is a virtue that PDP, on its part, has imbibed.
It's not a new thing.
And I would say that we should watch the space with regards to what Governor Wike has said. He shouldn't be misconstrued.
Okay, this is not a new thing. This is not a new thing in Nigeria's politics, Mr. Shura. We've had situations where perceived political enemies have been witch hunted several times before. It's not the first time. Now, the person involved in this situation happens to be a House of Representative member who is from Rivers State, and he has said that this is nothing about security, it is purely political. How do we marry these two allegations? The one side says it's security, it's because of security issues. The other side said it's because of political issues. How do we reconcile this?
Yeah, thank you very much. There is a common parable in Yoruba that the witch cried yesterday and the child died today. Who does not know that the witch that who are yesterday that is responsible for the child's death? You know, I remember that FM was equally one of victims of that kind of political vision. We should not hide under or behind the finger. What is happening? I just wish that it's just promoting that guy. If you want to seal an hotel for hiding or providing ecology or heaven for a criminal element, do you equally seal a filling station that sells fuel for same reasons? And that's why we are saying that this disgruntled or disagreement or quarrel should have some kind of limitation. There's a limit. There should be a limit. There should be a limit to litigation. Even if you go to court, there should be an end. If you are aggrieved, don't make it too obvious. Otherwise, because there's in the economy there's a point, a diminishing point. It has gotten to a point that his popularity is now diminishing, and that is why it is not even a plus for the APC, who would rather look and approach even members of their own that are disgruntled, like the vice president, the likes of Rotimi Amishi, and now they are embracing Wike. We will continue to apply the principle of the lordship to him, but if it goes beyond this, Nigeria are beginning to understand and know that, is it reason why he did not even win the primary? Because some of these actions too are not presidential. Some of the utterances are not presidential. We have to say the truth. Somebody who wanted to lead this country, some of these actions, he must move down. What is happening? These utterances.
Okay, we would have to open the phone lines now, but before I do that, a few comments from our Facebook Live. Well, if you are just joining us, this is Public Square, and we're discussing the feud between Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike and the PDP presidential candidates, and the recent onslaught against perceived supporters of the PDP candidate in Rivers State. So, on Facebook now, Atobatele Oluwakayode says, good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning to you too. Fakunle Rufus Oluwaseun, Governor Okowa betrayed the southern governors that are clamoring for the shift of presidency to the south. But according to your comment this morning, Okowa served as an agent to Atiku. Okay, he worked for his interests in the face of southern interests. Such a person is not worthy to be voted for. PDP should know that Wike is not alone. Useless Wike at their own peril. It is taking PDP too long to resolve this matter. Okay, thank you very much. Fakunle Rufus, we got your message. Olumide Ogundowale says Wike is becoming a solo man. After the 2023 election, he will become a former governor and be placed where he belongs. He should tread softly. Thank you. Temitope Amou, I'm appealing to Governor Wike to allow peace to reign since Alhaji Atiku set up committee to look into the matter. He should calm down and let everything be settled amicably before 2023 election. Thank you. It's high time for Governor Wike to allow peace and wisdom to rule his mind. He's never indispensable. Okay, thank you. We got your comments. We'll read more later on, but let's take a few calls from here. Just one or two calls we'll do this morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. 0816-251-9991, 0908-177-8793. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
Emeritus comrade. Olu Isigala from Owo.
Good to have you, comrade.
It's a pleasure, my sister. Although people look like see Wike are fighting a good cause. But I want to say that Wike cannot be so good pictures. The good pictures in the sense that you cannot be a player at the same time, be a player. I mean, conflict is inevitable in any organization. I want to say that collective bargaining, based on the principles of give and take, these are the very simple tools to win any impasse or inroad politically. And let me say that we may go to APC, but his defection to APC may be calamitous or catastrophic. But there are times we have to put the past behind us and create an atmosphere that will enhance better future.
All right. Thank you, comrade. We really appreciate your submission on the show this morning. Please, if you must call, just 1 minute is all you have. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, what's your name?
This is Ade calling from Dokoda.
Good to have you, Mr. Ade.
Thank you very much. You see, on this matter, for me, Jason Wike, if he felt cheated or disrespected in his political party, he has the ultimate decision for himself to take as to whether to be fair to the APC or not. Somebody was saying his defection will be calamitous. I think that is not true. That is not true. So let him take the decision. Thank you.
Why do you think it's not true?
You say what?
Why do you think his decision will not be calamitous? Alright, last call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, what's your name?
Yes, this is Chief from Obude from Akure.
From Akure. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thank you for the beautiful program this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Likewise, ordered for this year. I think it's advisable to use some Wike to trade with caution. Though I can see we all are seeing the way political party are romancing is gaining the moment for now. But he should have it in the back of his mind that this election will come and nobody knows how with them. So he needs to trade with caution for his political value for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, and that'll be the last call this morning. Quickly, we have to run now. Barrister Moshua, 2023 is fast approaching, and let's even that's still, still far off. Let's talk about campaigns that will start next year, next month, and we still have these issues lingering within the PDP. As a member of the APC, what is your advice? I know you are not a PDP member, but what's your advice?
My advice to PDP is they should not take Wike's clamor or whatever that is happening within them for granted, because Wike is like a blind man that tells somebody who is not blind that if you throw your stone, I will throw my stone. If he's not stepping on one stone, he's holding a stone. Why I say this is simply because if Wike is not thinking about what will happen after now, how are you so sure that Wike is not even thinking about who is going to win the presidential election in the first place? If APC wins, is it not a plus for Wike? So it's not just a matter of somebody saying if to be calamitous or what have you. He's living as a governor, what happens to him thereafter. So Wike is planning ahead of even what is happening in PDP now. So PDP should be very, very careful, and they should not take his matter with levity.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I am very, very glad to have you on the show this morning. Mr. Alan Shure, thank you for coming.
Welcome.
And Mr. Anki Benga Kimoyo, thank you very much for coming as well.
It's been a pleasure.
And Barrister Omoshua, it's nice to have you around. And our final comment on Facebook, Temisa Pemo, good morning. I'm appealing to Governor Wike to allow peace to reign. Says PDP and Alaji Atiku set up. Okay, we have that already. Thank you for all the comments. We really appreciate. Next week Thursday we will be back. Whether or not Wike will defect, let's keep our fingers crossed. If they eventually defect, whether or not that will be calamitous, let's keep our fingers crossed and watch events as they unfold. My name is Olabisi Olani Yoluwashegun. Good morning. Thank you for listening.